why does it exist? Why does a group like Offaly Local Development Company, an organisation, a social enterprise, what is it raison d'etre? And certainly one that is formed out of the amalgamation of others. And I work with an organisation, the Offaly ETB, that also found its own raison d'etre in the demise of others. And I don't mean in a negative demise, but in an amalgamation of, in our case, VEC and FOSS. But when you get four organisations like Offaly Leader, Oak Partnership, Tullamore Wider Options, West Offaly Partnership, all coming together. And when you look at the programmes, and even the 3 programmes that are being launched tonight, it's all about, and there's 3 words up there I see here, people, place and partnership. And that probably sums it up better than anything. And it's about, I suppose there's 2 things about place. One is the place itself. And certainly Leader is about an area-based approach to development. It's also about a developmental approach to an area. And both of those can't be forgotten. And when you talk about place, it's about this company, this organisation, knowing its place, knowing its function, and I don't mean knowing its place in a negative sense. You should know your place, we're all told that at some stage or other. That's not what I'm talking about. But what is it? What is the added value that you bring to the people, the communities of County Offaly? And I did a fair bit of thinking about that in the last 24 hours. And it really, if I could sum it up in a sentence, Offaly Local Development is an enabler of empowerment. We don't exist solely as a service provider. Sometimes being an enabler means you do provide a service. So there's a gap. How do we fill it? And Sarah has referred to it in terms of social enterprise. But in primarily in our function, in the community development approach to local development, to area development, it is about enabling the people identify their needs, develop a response to it, identify their strengths and build on those strengths, and enabling them to develop their own pathway, their own roadway to sustainability. And providing, I am an absolute true believer in if someone is hungry and you give them a fish, you feed them for one meal. If you teach them to fish, they're never hungry again. You feed them for a lifetime. And it's not true to say, as development workers, when we came, and Brendan and myself would have been the first 2 workers in Roisin, I have a colleague, Jolene, and I call her Roisin most days, and vice versa. But we were always told your job is to nearly do yourself out of a job. That's not true. That's a fallacy. Because there will never be a community who hasn't needs. Even, and it's very appropriate that we're here in one of the most longest established voluntary and community organisations in Offaly with the KDA. And I had the great pleasure of working with the KDA many years ago, and I see people like Seamus Barron, who Del Sweeney was here earlier, who were part of that group then. Declan Costello, actually, who I later went on to work with, carried him for fucking years, pardon the French. But the KDA is as important today and needs as much refreshing today and support today and enabling today as it did 30 years ago. More probably. Because we are never before were in such a society in modern Ireland, modern Europe, where the haves and the have-nots are so separated. Never before are those, the disadvantaged people who require the SICAP program, the social inclusion program, never before were they so far away from having what it is that some of the world have. So the challenge is always there. And when if we ever get to a stage, Maslow talked about self-actualization, it was a vision. You never really achieve it. You never will be the best version of yourself. Because as you progress, the target gets higher. And that's the way it should be. But that is what we are about. We are about individuals and communities being the best version of themselves. And for that to be sustainable, that's not handing them the job. That's giving them the skill set, the confidence, and the capacity to get their own job. That's what it's about. And there is absolutely great pride to be taken in being an enabler of other people's growth, of communities' growth, of other sustainability. And sustainability is only possible if that's the approach we take. And that's what has made this company so successful. The prime example was, I think it might have been the social inclusion, the social enterprise video again, where we went from the community shop in Pullen to the work below with Henry below in Moneygall, to what was happening here with the KDA and Linda. So all of the very different, but those are communities that are thriving, not in spite of, but because of the support that Offaly Development Company is giving them. So that's the approach, and that's what we have to do. The other, that's going from one to the other. Yes, I know we have to count the bubble and all the other funders within a program, within the parameters of the program. But social inclusion also comes with active communities, or communities and activation of communities. What else is sustainable communities? What else is rural development? Only a community identifying its own needs and developing responses to them and implementing those responses. So that the amount of synergy, and if you look like, and we go back over a long time, and partnership is crucial. The partnership that we had in building healthy communities that looked at people being helped and supported to meet their own needs, and you looked at the social determinants of health in its broadest sense. And enterprise and employment is part of that. And we can't have sustainable communities in Offaly if the jobs are in Laois and Kildare and Dublin. Enterprise and enterprise development, and particularly small and micro enterprises, are the heartbeat of this county. So of course, enterprise and employment is part of the sustainable community. I think that's our ultimate goal as an organisation, is to create a sustainable society, a sustainable community that is county-wide, that is the area that the LEADER programme refers to. But within that there are beating hearts in the Pullens and the Kilcormac's and the Ballycommons and the rural and urban communities of this county. That's the only way it works. And it can't work if the guy who was working in Boardmore and maybe have a small farm is now expected to drive 30 miles to work. That's not achievable. That's not our young people. More and more of them will take the planes away if the future is not sustainable for them. Within people with disabilities, within social inclusion, and some people need more support than others. If we talk about equality, you can only be equal if you all have the same starting point. But some people in life don't get the same starting point. So there's pre-development work with some communities for that reason. There's additional support to be given to some people because society determines that it's not an equal playing pitch, that they need additional support. What I like most about the Workability Programme is that the support is twofold. It's not just to the person with disabilities and focusing on their strengths and their ability rather than their disability, but it also focuses on the employer, prospective employer, and supports them to take on someone of that cohort, someone with a disability. So it's a brilliant programme. It's something that's badly needed in this county. And there's no use in talking about community, and I'm involved in a community where we did a brilliant community plan. But there was nothing in it for people with disabilities. So we have to revisit our plan and make it socially inclusive. That community is for BAM, by the way. But we had a really good plan, but nothing. You're only a sustainable community if you're looking after everyone in the community. And if the sustainability of every person is considered. And I do think Workability is a programme that will do that.